This is the New Times Hair 0.02 millimetre poly hairpiece. Well, I can see more clearly through this hairpiece than usual. Actually, writing I can actually understand here. 0.02 millimetre, colour number 4, and the date. Wow, absolutely comprehensible. This was ordered as a stock piece, so it hasn't had anything special done to it. This is basically how they sell them. They just haven't mass produced them. You know, I'm used to 0.03 millimetre poly. This is 0.01 millimetres thinner. So this is what 0.02 millimetres looks like against my fingertips. That's one side, and nothing on this side, of course, would have ever received liquid poly. And then when they stitch the V-loops through, the back side here is what they paint on with a liquid poly to seal those V-loops from falling out. So that would add, I don't know, 0.01. So potentially on its own, it could be 0.01, and then the plastic that they add to the back adds an extra 0.01, and it ends up as 0.02 millimetres. By comparison, if I just get a white sheet of paper, so by comparison, this is a white sheet of printer paper, just the standard paper I buy to put in my printer. I don't know what this is in terms of 1/100ths of a millimetre. I think paper is measured in GSM. I've seen that written around the place. I don't think paper is generally measured in 100ths of a millimetre, but I can imagine that you could look that up. Whatever the standard paper is for a 3D printer, this is the usual thickness. It goes through the printer just fine. And it's a nice piece of paper. It won't tear unless you kind of want it to, or if you're carrying lots of stuff. And it will crinkle easily, obviously, but not like a Bible page or something really thin. And just once again, now that you've seen that, let's look again at this. By the way, I have a question for you guys. When you see this front part that sticks out past the front hairline, is this usable? Do any of you actually wear this, glue this to the top of your forehead? Or do you all just chop it off? Are you glad that hair companies include this extra bit of skin along the front of the hairline? Or do you think it's just extra bit of effort for you to have to cut it off? Because I don't think I've ever seen anybody not cut it off. Like, obviously there's a problem with shadows on your forehead when this part is cut, and then the thickness of the actual plastic, even though it's often 0.03 millimetres, which is 3/100ths of a millimetre thick, it still creates a shadow on your forehead. This is the thinnest I've ever seen, 0.02. It does feel thinner, and yet it does not feel like it's going to tear too easily. So if I pull this, I'm really, like, that should be fragile, right? At the thinness level we were talking about. I'm not going to break it yet, I'm just going to let it go. Has it stretched it out and made it worse and behaved differently? It should have, shouldn't it? But it seems fine. Okay, now I'm going to try that again until it tears this time. I'm pulling pretty hard. I better be careful because I could tear right down the middle. But you saw the amount of effort I went to stretch that. In terms of stretching it all as a unit, it does have flexibility. I wouldn't trust if you maybe cut a hairpiece that was too small for your shave zone, that you could just stretch it into the position and leave it, because it will want to come back to its natural position and it won't stay like that. So I wouldn't stop making your hairpieces properly, cutting the stencils out to the right size. Now I'm going to observe the stitching. Did New Times Hair, question 1, did New Times Hair stitch this nicely? Did they know where the crown was and stitch down towards the back, or did they just get lazy and stitch sideways down here? First question. Well, the first thing I just noticed was this star shape. I don't know what's going on there. Let's see it closer. It might have been a place on the factory where they positioned the plastic down when it was seated onto something. It could have been a star-shaped object, and that could be like an imprint. Obviously no one's ever going to see that, it's not a problem. I'm just curious as to what it is, because I don't think they stitched something different in there and there. I think that's probably the way their machinery has created a shape on that. So the Auschwitz tag, okay, so we know that this is the front hairline, right? We'll understand that's how it would be released to the public. This is an 8x10 hairpiece. The back part here, I can always assume they have put this exactly on the back center. So if we map it out, the front hairline is there, becomes straight line. We should hit the Auschwitz tag right here, and New Times Hair did wisely put that as a transparent piece of plastic rather than a white piece of plastic, because they know that you can see through poly skin or lace, and yeah, people will see what's going on under your hair. So this one will look like a small little Auschwitz tattoo, as opposed to a piece of white tape that's stuck inside your hair. So that's good. I mean, it's better. I mean, I'd still want a label to be there. Auschwitz tags used to be very problematic because companies would just make them white and you couldn't remove them. And so this whole area on the back of your head would be, or in my case, the front of my head, because I usually go 1 and then 2 and 3 there. Try to get 3 pieces out for budgetary reasons. But I'm always having problems with, like even the hairpiece I've got on right now, it's not looking good. The reason it's not good is because at the moment, I can't see if you've got me in shot here, but I've got a hairpiece on and it's a side piece with, an Auschwitz tag probably halfway through that cut there. And what's going on is it's a side-to-side stitching, side-side. How can that happen? It can happen when the hairpiece company gets lazy and doesn't sew the V-loops outwards from the crown exactly. And they have to do that to make this all useful to me. Like if they have stitched side to side from ear to ear, then they'll have created a bad hairpiece like the one I'm wearing right now. The only way to make anything look real for me is to make it go down, out, 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 all the way, right? And that will enable me to just cut in from there, or cut in from there, or cut in from there. And everyone should expect that this front area is always going to be nose to spine, because if it's not, it's ear to ear, and then the hairpiece is useless. I've never seen anyone fail to do that, and this company has not failed either. This has been stitched correctly, I'm assuming, if I just hold my fingers underneath there. What we really need is a white surface to give us more visibility. So let's just go down. Front hairline is here. Let's find the center. And looking there, just parting at a random spot. The front center. It is straight lines. And of course, at this point in history, there are no companies whatsoever. Let me zoom in even further to show you the problem here. And this is with every hair company. They do not bleach poly roots because they don't deem the straight lines underneath the hair to be a problem. But they always are, because when you brush your hair in a certain position, especially if you do a brush back look with your hairstyle, anyone looking at your forehead will see straight lines going right back, just like a doll. But this hair that they've used here seems, I don't know, maybe thinner and nicer than some of the thicker hairs I have generally seen in the past. And I know that the hair quality, which is really lovely, and it's not even a word I would generally use, I know that it has nothing to do with the quality of a 0.02 millimetre poly, but they may have sent me nicer hair than usual. They've called this Remy Indian hair, and from what I understand, Remy simply means that when they chop off somebody's ponytail, or if they dig up a grave and take out a corpse and chop off their ponytail, then all the hairs are facing the same direction. So if the tips of the hairs are all facing that way, they're not going to mess around with it and then have, you know, some hairs going that way and some hairs going the other way, which could cause a problem with the, I don't know, the cut of a hair, if you're a hairdresser and understand the, I don't know, the inner workings of collagen or keratin or whatever is going on. All hairs will come up narrower as they go that way, but that's not really necessarily anything to worry about because they're bent in half in V-loops, aren't they? So, and even in the case of knotted lace roots, they're all going to end up being folded up, and the thin point's going to go down that way and the other thick point is going to go up that way. But it's so negligible, we human beings can't tell the difference really. So to be honest, I don't know why Remy is considered better than non-Remy. I really don't know. I could be missing something, because as far as I understand, Remy simply means that all the hairs are facing in the same direction, in exactly the way I just described it to you. But like I said, these lines, they don't seem as bad as usual. Okay, so that's 0.02 millimetre. Okay, now in my old Hair Direct box, this was a company who mistreated its customers, and they went out of business. This is probably a 0.03 millimetre. Already straight away I can feel that this is rougher and thicker than the 0.02. I don't want to rip this one either, but it feels more robust. I've bleached the front hairline on this one, but I think that's the front hairline over there. So looking back here, if we look down on the white surface, yeah. Here onwards is sort of like, you can tell that I've sort of I've bleached the roots as best as I could. But here, so the bleached ones, and they've even gone in multiple directions there with their stitching because they didn't do it properly. But it is an improvement there where I've bleached it blonde. Look at that, that's going to be my hairline if I wear this hairpiece it's going to be ear to ear and look completely fake. So I should have just thrown this hairpiece out. It's like the one I'm wearing right now. And then if we look here at the other hairs with these lines along here, it's pretty, it seems pretty dark. Although, I don't know, maybe it's just the lighting in this room and the camera. I think I might need to get my other glasses. So that's the 0.03, which is just a standard stop piece. Right, and then this is the 0.02 piece I just received and opened. Yeah, it's all just as bad. They simply have to stop providing dark roots. So in terms of anything other than the thinness of the skin, there's not going to be any change. If they did send me specifically nicer hair than usual, that won't be what they will send you, because they know this hairpiece is probably going to be reviewed. So just take that into consideration. The coloration that I'm seeing through this camera does not look like what it looks like in real life. So for some reason, my iPhone is not giving me correct results here. Now, I'm a bit worried about the back here, because I'm starting to see patterns, microscopic sideways patterns here that seem to be going side around the perimeter, like they have not bothered to stitch downwards and outwards. And the only way to really check that is to get the white page down again with the white surface and double check that they have come outwards from the crown and not around sideways on the crown. Oh, yeah. They've just lazily stitched sideways, and you can clearly see, I can with my eyes, I don't know if the camera's picking this up, what is, clearly like some sort of tattoo as well, which is the Auschwitz tag that you can clearly see through the hairpiece. So if your hair was wet or anything, you would see that on your skin. And I've tried for many years to take these Auschwitz stickers off, but it's not possible really without damaging the hairpiece, putting a hole in the poly. And you can also see that they have completely stuffed up the stitching pattern. They've gone side to side and they haven't come out from the crown, so I could never wear this. I could only use the front part, and because it was a custom order, it was very expensive. So basically, I can use that front section there, and I'm just gonna have to throw the rest away because of what New Times Hair have done with their stitching. In terms of the coloration, in terms of the roots being completely almost, very dark brown against pale skin. Oh wow. Look at this. Look at this clumsy work here. This is disgraceful. Look at this. Here, they've stitched outwards from the center, and then they've simply decided, no, I can't be bothered anymore, and they've started stitching sideways. So it's going sideways, stitching here, and then all of a sudden they've changed their mind and started stitching inwards. Or they've done one or the other, I don't know. I know it would be easier to stitch sideways when you get to this point if you were sitting there sewing something, but it makes this unusable. And it almost explains what this front plastic bit is at the front. It's a place for the factory worker to hold on to while they stitch outwards, so that they can make sure that the front hairline, at least, they're not going to mess around with your front hairline. It has to be nose to spine. But with the back and sides, they've gone chaos mode and made the back and sides unusable. Now that I've received this, I'm going to go back and contact them immediately and tell them, because I'm paying for a specialist new product where I'm going to have the center lace, the perimeter poly, and bleached roots throughout everything. Obviously this has no bleached roots at all. But I thought that stitching outwards from the crown and not sewing sideways on the perimeter was just an obvious given and it's an expectation. But for them, it's not. They just cut corners. So potentially this star-shaped formation is where they decided to stitch outwards all along the star formation. Let's see what happens to the star formation when we get to the front. Oh, I see. Yeah, see? It carries through that indentation part where the star formation ends. They've stitched forwards, forwards, forwards. I guess this is all happening forwards, forwards, forwards. And then when you get to the edge of the star, that's when they've just started going sideways. So the edge of each star is where they've shifted direction in their sewing. They have not adhered to what hair naturally does when it grows. They've completely ignored that. And from what I can tell, sewn all this correctly and then just said, oh, screw it, we're just going to start stitching things in sideways, which is a real shame because I spent weeks waiting for this to get delivered. And the new one that they're making custom for me, that's going to take weeks as well. But hopefully I have time to say, if you have stitched sideways on the perimeter, on the outside edge of the hairpiece that I'm spending hundreds of dollars on, throw it away and start again, because that is not acceptable. In terms of wearing this as a single hairpiece, which you would wear with this right on your front hairline and ignore the usage of any of the rest of it and just throw the rest away. First of all, you'd consider it probably too expensive to bother with that. I mean, is this significantly better than 0.03 millimetre, which is pretty much industry standard nowadays? I say that, but a lot of people are probably still buying 0.06, 0.08 millimetre, which is apparently got 3 or 4 months, whereas 0.03 and 0.02 have 1 to 2 months lifespan before the hairs start falling out, they say, or the base becomes rippable. But as you see, I've been pretty rough with it, right? And it doesn't rip. This is 0.02. How rippable is it? Obviously, if there was a tear already, it would be perforated and then I could just rip it easily, probably. Just like a note. What do you call it in America? A bill, a money bill or a money note. The density of this is medium density, which is considered 100% density in terms of the language of New Times Hair. 100% equal to their stock piece density, which is what I think is considered medium density. You can still see my fist through, right? If it was heavy duty density or heavy density or something, you probably wouldn't even be able to see my finger come through because it would just be like a rug. But medium light density would be the most realistic and also allows you to have hair stand up, but usually a stock piece is medium density, like this one. The problem with medium light density, especially with poly, is that you can see the plastic when it's exposed at the front hairline. So if this was the front hairline of my head, you would see all of that plastic on its own which has a completely different texture and shine level from your forehead. So people would go, okay, that's his forehead, and now what's this fake shit that he's got right along his front hairline everywhere? And what it is glue, which you can see just around the lip of it, just shining out, along with the shadow of the poly and the different shininess level of the poly. But when you've got medium density, there are enough hairs along the front hairline to disguise that and conceal the problem. With lace, the base is invisible in all observations I've made, unless the netting is absolutely got no hairs coming out of it at all. But the glue shines out through the gaps. And I have no known way to subdue that glue from doing that. And of course with lace, the hairs rip out when you take it off your head, unless you use something like lace release each time you do a hair change. And the glue gets very dirty and it's very difficult to lay down the front hairline accurately, etc. Poly is the answer for the front hairline, which is why I'm getting the poly perimeter made with the internal lace. So for most people who have a full topper that wear the whole thing, right? They will have an easy to clean and re-glue and then push down at the front and the back, potentially some along the sides if you've got a wide hairpiece, and then you'd have total breathability in here. In my situation, I'd be able to cut it here or here or here. It would be easy for me at the front to make a nice clean attachment, and then at the back or in the center, the lace would be cut around there and so on, and this would blend more nicely with my natural bio hair perimeter. So what I would do is I'd pre-glue my hair to there. I'd lift up this flap at the front at the end, glue that, wait 15 minutes, and then press it down, and that would be done. And it would look most realistic right around there and around there. So for my company that's making it for me, they're going to be bleaching the roots of the lace part of the hairpiece separate from the poly roots. So they're going to use two different methods to bleach the roots. Here, they've used zero method to bleach the roots because there is no company in the world right now that I know of who are bleaching the roots of poly. And so we end up looking fake like this. At least they're going nose to spine. Or if you want to go extreme fake and extreme failure of a hairpiece, you just look at the back of this hairpiece that they've sent me, and you can see not only have they not bleached the roots, but they've also stitched perpendicular to the forehead's nose to spine line. So you can see there, they've sewn correctly this way, and then the person who made the hairpiece has just changed directions and started stitching against their own direction because they just found it easier to hold it on their lap or on their table or whatever they were doing. This kind of thing is absolutely unacceptable. So it all has to go outwards. It can never go this way. It's like, that's the way the hair would run if you had a comb over. It's shockingly bad. But at least they got the front right. If you're just one of those people who have only one use for the hairpiece, and that is to have a full topper, you'll cut it around there and you'll place that on your front of your forehead, on your hairline, and the rest is going to be all concealed under the hairs anyway, so you don't care about the quality underneath. So is this thinner than 0.03 in that it will have a massive impact on how good it looks. Now I can try this on for you because I want to change my hairpiece, but this will be day one, so I can put this on and brush my hair back, and I'll show you what it looks like, and I'll describe to you what it feels like with the 0.02 being a bit thinner than usual. But I can tell you right now, this is not bleached. The root's not bleached. And also I can tell you right now, I can't use any of the rest of that. In fact, I would be forfeiting my ability to get a refund on this thing if I cut it. So maybe I shouldn't do that for you. Maybe I should be more concerned with my wallet than using this. Because for me, as a partial wearer who's only going to use that bit, and that bit, I can now only use just that bit, and I have to throw most of it away because it'll be useless. So yeah, I think at this point I might just wrap this back up, if I can get this back over, and send it back to China and ask them to make it again. Because at the moment, I would be wasting my money to cut this to pieces and only get one hairpiece out of it.